Hey, Megan here. I'm gonna divert a little bit off my normal talks about plants and aquatic plants and things like that, and instead I want to talk to you really quickly about tips I have for people who have ADHD and want to keep aquariums, because I have ADHD and I have 4 tanks, as you've seen in previous videos, and I really like it. I really like having these aquariums. I think that they're really good for, I don't know, my mindset, or, you know, when things get really overwhelming or too many sensory issues or stuff like that. They're also a great way to embrace your hoarding tendencies or your hyperfixation tendencies on a relatively small area. I'm not an ADHD expert. I do run a channel for ADHD entrepreneurs because, of course, I do. I have ADHD, so collect the whole set. My point is, listen to your doctor before you listen to me, but just want to give you a couple of tips for keeping your tanks healthy and successful while having a neurodivergent disorder that makes it hard to be attentive. So number one is accept good enough. I don't think, well, at least in my experience, like, your tanks will never be clean. By the way, they're really low right now because I'm changing out the water. They'll never be pristine. If they are, then awesome for you. I have an attentive type of ADHD, so it's just not happening. But if you can just accept that your tanks will be good enough, that your fish will be able to thrive, your plants will be able to thrive, and everybody will be really happy without it being like museum quality beautiful, I think you're gonna be well on your way to keeping successful tanks. Point 2, go for bigger tanks, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, but the more space you have in a tank, the more diluted the nitrates and things like that will get, ammonia levels. It's much easier to keep consistent levels in a bigger tank than it is a smaller tank. And look, I'm not gonna tell you to get fewer tanks because I know who I'm talking to. You're gonna get as many as you want, so go for it. But if you can and you have the space, go for a bigger tank. My smallest tank right now is 7 gallons, and even that is just too small. I wish I had a 10-gallon for my beta, but I don't have the space for it. So when he goes away eventually in the circle of life, I'm going to probably see if I can kind of combine my 20-gallon and 7 into like a 30-gallon and just have 3 tanks of happy fish and critters. Which brings me to my next point. Fill your tank with critters that can be helpful to you. Plecos, shrimp, snails will all help you get rid of stuff on the bottom of your tank and give it a little more room for it to flourish without getting toxic. Especially if, like me, you're inattentive and some days just can't get to doing the work you need to do. These give you a little bit more breathing room. And also plants. Getting plants that will eat up nitrates or other chemicals are really helpful and really beneficial, not even if you don't have ADHD. A couple of really good ones I'm gonna put here. Another tip I have is to get low effort fish and low effort plants. I wish I could have CO2. I wish I could have a saltwater tank. I can't. I know that it would just be, the CO2 wouldn't work because I just don't have the, it doesn't spark enough interest in me for me to be able to keep it going. And saltwater tanks require way too much maintenance, in my opinion, for me to be able to do that. So I stick to plecos, platies, danios, betas, pea puffers. I think my most complex guy is an angelfish. They're all pretty low effort, and the same goes with my plants. These are all pretty hardy plants that, yeah, would be much happier if they had CO2, but they're good enough, and that's what we're sticking to, good enough. Next, get a bigger filter. My tanks all have filters that are probably like right on the cusp of a little bit too powerful, but they're connected via, you know, tubes and control valves and things. But having a bigger filter helps me keep my tanks clean on times that either I just can't do it, I don't feel like doing it, whatever. Having the bigger filter kind of gives me a little bit of a breathing room, and my fish too. Another tip, invest in things that lower the friction and make it easier. Gravel vacuums that hook up to your sink are awesome. Light timers, things like that. I actually have a list of all the stuff I've bought on Amazon for my aquariums that have made it way easier that I will link below. And finally, if you can, put your tanks somewhere that you go to a lot. My tanks are currently in my office, so that's the place I have to go to work. And that makes me have to see them all the time. I am someone who is very like out of sight, out of mind, and I know that my tanks would be a lot worse off if I didn't have to see them every workday. So don't put them in like a guest bedroom or a basement or something if that's not a place you visit frequently. You're gonna have to keep them top of mind. And for me, the best way to do that is to make sure I see them all the time. So those are my quick tips for you. If you have any tips for navigating ADHD and aquarium keeping, leave a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear your suggestions, but I'll see you in the next video.